How's it going? So, we seem to have gotten ourselves a bit of a scream. You can't even see. There you go. Apparently, this is a bit of a rarity, the 4-pack on Blu-ray. Weird. Apparently, the film rights for the fourth film are so ridiculous that when re-releasing them, they've only been able to re-release them as a trilogy. So, I have the 4-film pack. I've had it for a few years now. So it's time to do a calm and relaxed talk about the Scream franchise. Of course, this is in honor of the fifth one coming out, unfortunately just titled Scream, because they learnt nothing from Halloween 2018, so they're just doing Scream with the name Scream. Yeah, it's really annoying. Still, I mean, it could be Scream Resurrections, so that could be... Wait, shit, that's The Matrix. I was meant to be putting that as like a criticism against, like, you know, Halloween H2O, like, and Halloween Resurrection. That wasn't a resurrection, was it? Revelations? I think that's what I'm kind of going for. Anyway, who cares? So, I had actually watched all these films in like a 2-day period back in September of 2020, but I was going through a lot of stuff at the time and wasn't really in the mood to make a video, so I figured, oh, this is my mate Jeff. He's a skeleton. I hope you like him. He sits on my desk, my TV mantle here. And so I figured, look, it's finally time, after all this time, to actually do a Scream Come and Relax talk. I even did a whole video where I was like, hey, what could they possibly do for Scream 5, metatext-wise? Filmed that before the poster and the trailer, which I'm assuming will come out tomorrow, as today is currently... It is October the 11th, and this will be coming around Halloween, as a Halloween special. So we're doing a Calm and Relax talk about the Scream franchise. I'm not talking about the TV show. I never watched it. I don't really care to watch it either. It doesn't appeal to me. So let's talk about the first film. I've just rewatched the first film. I'll be watching these films every night for the next 4 nights and finishing this video probably on the Thursday night, if not filming on the Friday. So obviously the setting, the costuming, and everything will change quite drastically each video, each clip, I'd imagine. Nevertheless, if you want specific reviews, there will be a section down below, or it'll be in the timeline telling you what film I'm going to talk about and when. And of course, spoilers for all of these films, because outside of the fact that they've been out for over 10 years, 20 for some, there's also the notion of they're all about this idea of a master killer, and that being revealed is a big point of the plot. You know, it's relevant, so sorry about, that. But anyway, what can I say about Scream? Now, I haven't done a Calm and Relax talk for a while, so what can I say about the first film, Scream, the 1996 film? Holy shit, it's 25 years old. I've been waiting for my steelbook to come in the mail, the 4K steelbook. It hasn't. Won't be coming in until November, so I'm just watching my regular Scream 4-pack. Be interesting to see what that's like on a UHD. We'll see. So, Scream. I gave it 4 stars. My quote, oh, she's getting mad, Randy. Better leave her alone. Better leave her alone. It's meant to... There's a gag in it where he's talking about a liver, and he's like, better leave her alone. Anyway, the quote's, that's how it is, better leave her alone. It's a pun. Anyway, again, I had much better quotes last year when I tried this whole entire thing, and I don't know how much of those original reviews I'm going to go back to. So, Scream benefits from 2 things that most slashers don't get right. Firstly, having entertaining characters, whether this being they're quotable, whether this being that they're entertaining to watch or that you care about them. This film kind of tackles all of that. They're quotable, they're enjoyable to watch, you give a shit about at least the majority of them, or at least the main characters. And of course, having a sense of humor while still allowing for tense sequences. Now, this sense of humor is mostly a meta-take on the whole facet, the whole idea of horror slasher films, especially when it gets into its meta-text analysis, which I don't think I'm going to break down too much because, it's what everybody talks about when it comes to Scream. Outside of who the killer is, it's the fact that all these films are very meta. And by meta, I mean that they are approaching themselves not from the fourth wall breaking point of view of, oh, we know we're in a slasher film, but more of a, hey, slasher films exist, and we're currently living through technically a slasher film, but like without being so aware that they're in a film, rather just the conventions of what should happen if they were in a slasher film while it's taking place. So, of course, the first film idolizing what the conventions of the slasher film are, what the rules are, of course, how Randy, man, what's his actual name? Jamie Kennedy. Oh, not a fun subject to cover these days, but Randy Meeks, of course, a standout character of the franchise, giving you what is the rules. You know, you can't have sex, you can't have alcohol or drugs, and you can't say I'll be right back, because you'll get murdered for all three of those things if you participate in them. Of course, this film breaks conventions at the same time as, like, analyzing them, which is what's fun about it. It establishes that there are conventions. It extrapolates, hey, here's an example. It's basically a video essay when you think about it. Here's your example, Halloween, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis's character only survives because she's always the virgin, you know, she doesn't do drugs or doesn't drink, and she doesn't say, I'll be right back. And that's what happens throughout this whole film, where characters say that, but they don't really, sometimes, you know. It's only really when they're making fun of it that they're actually fine. Most of the characters who get killed off, you know, are usually people who clearly are adults, like the principal gets killed. Why? Because he can. It's a good setup for later in the film getting rid of all the other characters who are left over at the house party. That's really the only reason why the principal gets killed off, realistically. Maybe the main characters just have a grudge against him because they don't like their principal. I think that's an American trope. I liked my principal because he was nice. And that wasn't just a me thing, it was a lot of people in my school liked our principal. And then he left on the year that I left, so hey, that was my luck. So, of course, this film is directed by Wes Craven and written by Kevin Williamson, who I believe wrote all four of the Scream films. Well, maybe not the third one. It doesn't say he wrote the third one. Curious. I wonder who wrote the third one. But, of course, he didn't even write the new one. He was a producer on the third one. Who wrote the fourth one? The third one? Ewan Kruger. Oh. Brief synopsis of the plot. Well, your main character, Sydney, is being stalked by the Ghostface killer, which they only reference the name once, and that's like a throwaway line by someone who is about to get murdered, which I think is an interesting thing, like the amount of, you know, the names that they throw around, and they probably were like, okay, we want the audience to decide what the name of the killer really is. Maybe they actually put it in. I don't really think they say, in the cast at least, like, Ghostface. Oh, well, they say for Roger L. Jackson, Ghostface voice, so they might have it written like that in the actual film. I don't know, maybe they decided post-writing it, oh, we're going to call him Ghostface, and that's what one of the characters references him out. That's my favorite kill, by the way, that of, Jesus Christ, what the hell is her name? Oh, Rose McGowan's Tatum Riley. I love her death scene, it's my favorite in the film. Because it's one of those, the big, you know, it's not... It's not my favorite because she's the ditzy blonde with the big tits, but it also is my favorite, like, ironically, because that's the way the situation's presented. Like, she's not actually a ditzy blonde. She's, yes, big tit blonde, sure, but then, you know, even she has a self-awareness about the fact of, like, oh, please don't kill me, Mr. Ghostface, I want to be in the sequel. Like, and the way she dies, just becoming a puppet and getting crammed into that, doggy door in the garage. It's probably a cat door in this case, because only a cat goes through it, but, yeah, it's, just a very fun death. But, yeah, you've got, like, some great characters, so, obviously, Sidney Prescott, your main character, played by Neve Campbell, she's getting hunted, because it's a year since her mother was raped and murdered, and that's pretty much the gist for her character, except that her boyfriend, Billy Loomis, happens to be obviously the killer, but, you know, is dating her and killed the mother and has all this, he has his whole reasons for why he killed them. Do I need to really explain the plot? What are my thoughts about the film, at least? Like, do I enjoy the characters? Sure. I really like the characters. Obviously, the villains are pretty fun. I think it's really, really obvious that they're the bad guys, like, from the first scene that we see them in, like, next to the pond, which is again where I got my quote from. It is so obvious that they're the bad guys. Like, it doesn't help, obviously, that, I mean, it kind of does, that Randy even points out. He's like, yeah, you guys are obviously the killers. The whole film, he's saying that they're obviously the killers, even though these are his closest friends, and they have no connection with, what's her name, Linda Blair's in the film? Really? From Exorcist? Yeah, she is, Jesus. Drew Barrymore, of course, is in the film as Casey Becker, and after her death, which is the first 13 minutes of the film, which is a great way to start off your slasher film. Both, it sets up the tone quite well, like it gives this comedic vibe to it, like how, oh, we're going to make fun of the elements of what the tropes of a slasher film are by literally doing a trivialized version, referencing the fact that, this is a film, well, that, A Nightmare on Elm Street exists and stuff like that, where this film is directed by Wes Craven. Probably not the initial foresight in the film, but there are obviously a lot of fourth wall breaking references where you have Wes Craven also playing the janitor, just dressed up as Freddy Krueger. Like, he clearly was having fun with this because it was written that way. Like, it wasn't just, oh, this is generic slasher film that exists or anything like that. It's like, no, this is set up as it is, spoofing the genre whilst not spoofing the genre completely. Like, it's using a metatext approach rather than the parody approach, which I think works really well for these films and what makes them so unique. I'm kind of going around in circles for what I'm saying. Like, it's tricky to find something new to say about Scream as a film, as a franchise, because it's like, I don't need to go into the plot. If you've seen the film, you know what the fucking plot is. You don't need me to recap it, which is always something I hate about these kind of videos that I make, where I'm like, oh, I gotta recap the plot. No, who cares? What do I think about the film in terms of its actual, critical lens and everything? I think it's pretty good. Now, of course, for me, I don't get scared by slasher films that much. Like, sure, they might have their loud jump scares, but as an overall, I don't really care much. Like, it doesn't really get me. And, well, to each their own, it is what it is. Like, I think this film benefits, like I said in my review, it benefits from having characters that I give a shit about. Like, it develops them quite well for a slasher film. Like, yeah, sure, it kills off other side characters. And realistically, all the characters who die, outside of the killers themselves, don't really have much development at all. Like, you don't really see their deaths coming. Like, the principal, you don't really see. He's, like, obviously it's pretty well set up by the fact that, he's there in his office and everything, and it just kind of happens. And it's like, it's, but it's not, like, foreshadowed or anything. You don't know a lot about his character. You never need to. Same as Drew Barrymore. Like, you get enough of her character in her scene for, like, oh, she likes scary movies, she has a boyfriend, but she's happy to lie about it, and all this kind of stuff. Like, it gives enough character for you to actually care about her in a facet. It's not doing this thing where, like, this is the film that's like, oh, hey, we're casting a big lead actress, Drew Barrymore, a well-known name, in our slasher film, and she's the first to get killed off. You wouldn't expect her to get killed off, obviously breaking, again, conventions. So the opening scene itself... Sorry, interruption, I forgot where I was at. Drew Barrymore, the whole opening, it sets the tone, it sets the precedence for what the film's to be like. And I think it's a really well-constructed opening sequence. Obviously, it's copycatted throughout the rest of the franchise. It's... we'll get into that, of course. But obviously, Scream, the first one, the most iconic, some people's absolutely most beloved horror film. For me, it's a very fun one. I don't like watching it a lot, because like most slasher films, it's not always very fun to rewatch a lot. And again, it was not very interesting to watch it a year after watching it. It's not boring. It's just, in its own right is formulaic because it's very stock. Like everything that happens in the film, beat for beat, you will remember because it's so iconic. And that's where I'm interested to rewatch the sequels because like there are so many elements of the sequels that, because of how they're messily written at times and stuff like that, and it's like because of the messy productions behind at least the second and third one, I'm interested to rewatch them more than I am the first one, because the first one everybody loves, whereas everyone complains about the sequels, which of course is ironic because even in the first film itself, you know, Drew Barrymore's character even says like, "Oh, I love the first Nightmare on Elm Street, but the rest of them suck," you know. Or it's more of she likes Freddy in the first film, but after that, you know, they just turn the crap. So I think obviously this came to at a very interesting point in slasher history in the late 90s where, you know, slasher films themselves were dead as a genre. Like, sure, sequels kept getting made and just throwaway ones kept getting made because they were cheap and easy to make, and a lot of them were really, really dull. But, you know, of course, a lot of them have since become, like, cult classics and stuff like that. Like, they all found their audience eventually, or just people like myself who love slasher films, though I don't get scared by them personally, which is just a me thing. It's always fun to watch them. Like, I'm not the kind of person who's going to watch Halloween every single year, because it's like, nah, bitch, I can watch Prom Night, I can watch April Fool's Day, like, there are so many great slasher films out there, and then you explore to different like genres and stuff, not just different genres, but different languages and stuff. So you got like giallo horror as well, which is great. Like when you want more masked killer kind of stuff, where it's just a glove with a knife. Like they're more interesting than, oh, there has to be an icon from its mask and whatever, like with Halloween and whatever, which is a very American popularized thing. If you can't market it, what the fuck's the point? So I think even Ghostface is a great character in that representation of like how, outside of having the voice modulator stuff and the cloned phones and all this kind of very 90s stuff, like everything about this film is very 90s in its attitude, which is again happens for the first 3 films, even though the third one actually came out in 2000, you know. The first 2 were, 96 and 97. They took their time with the third one, and yet still people hated it. I think it's my favourite, but we'll get into that. Ghostface is interesting because, again, even his character's like, oh, you know, you can get the character costume at any, you know, store, you know, from in the whole neighborhood, in the whole country kind of deal. Like, it's just a generic slasher, it's just a generic costume, which was always such an interesting thing. Like, of course, when you get to... one of the Halloween films does that. Actually, I think it's Halloween 2018. It must be. I'm pretty certain one of the Halloween films, it might have been an earlier sequel, has a sequence where Michael gets his costume, because he hasn't had his costume the whole... No, it's not 2018, it must be like the 4th or 5th one, I think. He gets his costume from the store. He just robs the store, which is where he got his costume from originally. And he just goes back to the store, and instead of having to steal a different mask, it's, oh look, they've just recreated my mask, and it's now in a Halloween store. I can just grab this one instead, you know? So obviously Scream wasn't the first one to like make a joke out of that, but even then, this one makes more sense to make a joke out of it, where the Halloween films really didn't, because they were still trying to be serious slasher films. And so, yeah, this film benefits from, outside of having an interesting story and interesting characters and lore and background and all this kind of stuff, like it all works. And there's never the whole time when you're thinking, oh, because the twist isn't just that there are 2 Ghostface, it's that the 2 Ghostface are the best friends, It's like, oh, great, and of course Matthew Lillard, fantastic, I love him in this film. I feel like there's not enough of him, but then I feel like if there was more of him, then it would be more obvious that he's a bad guy, but pretty much the scene where the 2 are in... with Randy in the VHS store, probably a Blockbuster, realistically, it's the 90s, it's pretty goddamn obvious that they're the bad guys, and it's like, did they know by this stage that these are the bad guys? Because it's really goddamn obvious that these guys are the bad guys. So, yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting film for me to analyze in terms of, you know, as a what it came from as a genre film. You know, the slasher film has died off. It's fucking so dead and buried that even Wes Craven has already tried, you know, doing something more meta and approach with his new Nightmare film, which is also quite a fun film. You know, and that was only like 2 years before this. So he went from that to Scream, which I think was a good layover. Like, hey, let's try something new, fresh, and meta with my original character, which was the last film in that franchise. And then he does Scream 3 years later. So it was always fun to look at it that way. Like I've studied genre conventions, and to see how, you know, you get to a point where there's a genre burnout, so you need to revitalize it, but not with something like new and slick with a new killer or whatever. It's no, you need to make it meta. You need to make jokes about it. But then if you make it straight parody, it can usually suck, because then you're going to make jokes that land and stuff. But in this case, it's, hey, we're going to make a referential meta text slasher film that's still a serious slasher film with, you know, good effects, good, you know, writing, good directing, good camera work, all that kind of stuff. It looks professional. Like, it's a big budget, like, Hollywood film. But then there's also the element of, I mean, there probably wasn't a huge budget, but, you know, 20 million, whatever, that kind of jazz. But then you've also, you know, a fresh face cast and everything, but having the meta approach. You know, you got to establish the rules. You got to talk about slasher films and horror films, because it makes it more obvious as to who the bad guys are and stuff like that. You know, that's the element that makes a film interesting to me, which it makes it interesting to a lot of people as well. So it's what makes Scream more than just your regular slasher film, because it has this history behind it and this text interwoven into it, both as a meta text and as a actual text. So that's why it's worth watching. That's why it's realistically a 3.5-star film, but because it has that extra oomph, you know, because everything about it is consistently entertaining if you watch it every couple of years rather than every year in repeat, unless you really, really love it, which, you know, there are films that you could really, really love and watch it once or twice a year. I can understand that, but Scream for me isn't one of them, personally. I could watch it maybe every 2 to 3 years, yeah. So, yeah. Anyway, on to the next one. Let's see what happens in Scream 2. Electric Boogaloo. See you then. The off button isn't working. So, Scream 2 is, of course, the follow-up film directed by Wes Craven. Who else? Came like a year later. Insanely. But not really, because a lot of slasher films would be like spat out the next year. Kevin Williamson came back to write it. And what did I say in my review? I gave it 3 stars, which is my common rating for this film. My quote, so romantic and so Greek. And simply I said, guess who? Scream Edition. My initial review went more into the details of how, like, you know, it's a kind of a messy film, but it benefits from that because it's like, you know, both from the production of it, but also how, like, oh, who's the killer and all this kind of jazz. So this is basically the Guess Who version where it lines up a lot more random people. Do we want to, you know, follow the lead of, oh shit, it's a sequel, so yeah, it could be this person, it could be the boyfriend, it could be this random person, I don't even know. So I've got a lot of things to talk about, so I'm just going to read off my script, because this time I actually wrote during the film, because I feel like that worked better for me this time around. I feel like for the third film I'll just kind of sit there and watch it, and then add, and then kind of improv after, but we'll see how it goes. The first film I just felt like it was better to just spat out my thoughts as they came to me. So, firstly, we start off with Screamo-Vision during the showing of Stab, because of course they had to make a movie out of the film, out of the events of the first film, which is a nice, again, continuation of the meta qualities. This is a fun way for the film to be like, so let's recreate the original cold opening, but also make a fun commentary on America and its viewing habits in cinema, both as a commentary on audiences watching scary films in theaters, something we don't get in Australia, where people will just talk and yell during a movie. Doesn't happen. Unless, of course, it's a Marvel film. Anyway. And, of course, on audiences indulging in the glorification of real-life murders in a cinematic setting, popularized more since in Netflix documentaries. This is also kind of a fun way, to show how, companies capitalize off of, merchandising, especially given that this is like a slasher film. It's like, hey, we've got an iconic villain, so everyone's got a Ghostface mask. And then we've got these knives, but they glow in the dark, because it's to do with this gimmick in the Stab-O-Vision thing, where they'll have the scream, the Ghostface puppet fly across the ceiling and all this kind of stuff. They make it really an audience experience, which probably isn't completely realistic to what, American audiences are like in a cinema experience. But it's just, it's a fun, element of the sneak preview kind of stuff, the opening night kind of deal. And it's a nice gimmick. It's a nice callback to stuff like The Tingler, where, the film, the auditorium will try to, play with you so you can get more scares out of it, whether other people have knives or whether there's actually a killer running around. And in this case, there's a killer running around. So it's very, 50s homage, which I appreciate. But yeah, mostly just the fact that they, capitalize on the marketability of the villain just through the costume. It's neat. There's a lot that you can analyze about the film's opening yet again, which is what I think is what is nicely done about these film openings. Again, cold open, if you will, how it doesn't always relate completely to the film. They, of course, tied it to the film outside of, these two people were killed at the cinema during the Stab movie, and people thought it was a marketing gimmick, and then they're connecting their names to it and stuff like that. I'll get into that later. The film, in its own right, is commentating on the depiction of African Americans in horror films, as well as literally everything else I've just mentioned. So it's not all surface level, but it's there. It's in your face as to what's happening. You can read it quite easily, and it's kind of just meant to be fun and gimmicky, which is more or less the point. I don't really think that they go it's hard to say why they put in the, African American stuff. I mean, it's obviously a necessity. It's an American horror cinema. It's a necessity. And having them be the first two people killed off, both being people of color and whatever, it's there's also the cliche of the black person dies first kind of shit, which doesn't happen in the first film. In fact, I don't think there is any people of color in the first film. Shit, I don't remember any. So it's kind of, a criticism on the first film, but I think that they played it up in this one by saying, the first two people to die in this film will be that, commentating on that. So again, a meta approach. But then the roommate later on is, of course, a person of color, plus the cameraman. And they're both pretty fun characters. I'd say the cameraman has more of a, character, whereas the roommate is just kind of there. But yeah, so it's, obviously the cameraman can mention how, your previous cameraman, Gale, he got killed, and I'm black, so I'm definitely gonna die, He doesn't, so that's a fun twist on that convention, if you will. So it's just a nice thing that kind of lays out throughout the film. It doesn't come back. It's like this film was like, shit, we gotta talk about black people. There we go. But not really. It doesn't feel forced. It just kind of feels like a commentary, again, a continuation of the meta context. So yeah, it's nice. It's in the opening too, as well. It's not too comedic. It doesn't go over the top or anything like the later films do. It's just pure and solid, for what it needs to be, showing up where the universe has naturally developed to. So I think it works. It's not as iconic, sure, but I think it's quite good. Then, of course, the film goes into the analysis mode, where, you have film students analyzing films and sequels and stuff, and these totally aren't first-year college kids. I'd say college, because I don't know if it's university or college. I think it's college? I don't know. It looks like a university, but I don't know what the fucking difference is in the US. It's all bullshit there anyway, so, but yes, I've been in that class before, twice now, both in my first year, where, yes, it was so much fun to be like, I watched a lot of films because I'm a nerd, let's talk about it, but then realizing that everyone else has too. Some people are more open to discussions or more open to different tastes, but for the most part, we've all been there, That's how I met, one of my best friends, because we're just like that, and if you find your person for that, that's what's good about it. But in my last year of uni, this year, unfortunately, my only class was a first year class, and oh my god, film nerds everywhere. But they're all like, "Oh, but look at me, I'm so smart. I know about the films from the '80s." Woo! So anyway, it can be obnoxious. So yeah, of course, the reference to how sequels can suck. It's fun. It's a bit, again, film college stuff. It's very obnoxious, This film sequence, I'm not going to get into the topic of film sequels. They can suck, but for the most part, they're not always terrible, Sometimes films can get better the more the films progress. I do like the comment on Empire Strikes Back, how it's not a sequel because it's part of a pre-planned trilogy. Nobody even mentions that, except for in this film, and I like that. It's interesting. Then we are joined by our returning cast from the original, Gale, Randy, Sydney, and later Dewey. And secretly we are introduced to the villains, so yes, obviously spoilers. A regular film class goer, Mickey, Timothy Oliphant, is a kind of a giveaway nowadays, realistically. He's the only other notable face outside of the boyfriend, who's the obvious, he's definitely not the killer kind of choice. And of course, Debbie Salt, who I don't even know what her actual first name is, but still, she's played by Laurie Metcalf, being the more interesting of the two, mostly because she's, kind of a background character. She shows up a lot, but she's not really effective to the plot because she doesn't interact with Sydney, which is the most unique part about her character, and obviously cleverly done when you think about it, because it's I'm not here to completely overpraise the film, but it's the fact of how they reveal the twist of oh, hey, it's Billy's mum, it's Mrs. Loomis, and it's oh shit. Of course, the only person who would recognize that would be the girl who dated Billy, So obviously, there's they note how she's lost weight and got some work done, but still essentially her. So it's just fun. Anyway, but her and Mickey get some interesting characterizations throughout the film, with Debbie being the one who's the opposite to Gale. She's the kind of antagonistic reporter, but she's also a big fan because obviously she's you're the one who reported about my son being a murderer. I hate you, and I want to take you down by focusing on your ego. Because if I can't stab you, I will stab your ego. And then of course Mickey being, we'll get into his stuff later, but just in general, he's just a movie nerd and happens to have a camera occasionally. But outside of that, he's friendly towards Sydney, but he's also a bit manipulative, which is, I think, a fun thing. Knowing that them two are the killers works a lot better, because in this first film, knowing who the killers are, it's it just makes it obvious and kind of dull. Whereas in the second one, it's more fun because they're not there as often, It's just, when they are there, you're really grabbing onto their performance and what they're doing and what they're saying. It's wow, it kind of is obvious it's them, but at the same time, there's enough, Dewey could be the bad guy, you've got the boyfriend could be the bad guy, you don't know it's two killers, there's a lot of stuff in it that makes it compelling. And arguably, I think the killers are done better in the second film to some degree. The film plays more of the let's not characterize our villains too much until we reveal them as the villains, which can work in favor for the mystery of the characters, but it can also work as an equal disservice, upon rewatch. This, of course, messy production and stuff like that, but I kind of think it works in this kind. When I wrote it, it was oh, it's not really that great when you know who the killers are, but it's yeah, but this time watching them, it's it's pretty fun. I gotta admit, it's fun watching these two as the killers. Especially for how it pans out in the end. There's only one thing I would have changed, but I'll note that down later. So I still stand by my original theory that Dewey should have been organizing the murders as a cult, as a play on the the whole college sorority frat stuff, which would have effectively used the college a bit more outside of just it being a location. It doesn't, it being a college doesn't really do too much outside of how it works with the boyfriend and the frat stuff, and in the end the theater. But outside of that, it just shows that they've moved on and now look, they're at college and whatever. So, Randy and Sydney happen to go to the exact same school. It doesn't matter. It's an art school, so I guess it obviously it makes sense. But yeah, so initially with my whole Dewey theory, I thought that it was kind of fun to play on how, Gale wrote him as a dumb cop in the first film, in a book especially, and this would like set up like a revenge plot for him. But of course they just went for the Dewey is still the hero cop. In this case, he's more of a victim strongly in this one. And of course, they got to still focus on his relationship with Gale, which becomes kind of the main like romantic relationship from the series, which I think is good. Because of course, if that's your backward thing to lean on rather than him being the killer or the main bad guy or the one organizing it all, it's like I think this still works quite well because it's like, hey, at least we still have a romantic arc, a romantic character thing in the whole franchise. Because of course, outside the fact that the two were a couple in real life, having Sydney have consistent romantic partners gets dropped after this film. Like, I don't think she has a romantic partner in the third film, but obviously the first, because I'm pretty sure she's isolated for most of the third film. But of course, the first film, her boyfriend's the killer. Her second film, oh my god, is the boyfriend the killer? And then he dies. Yeah, so she kind of doesn't want to have a partner after that, which makes total sense. Fun nod to having Sarah Michelle Gellar in the film, who then proceeds to die in the most elongated, kind of isolated death scene, which is mostly just a fun, oh, we just want to kill someone randomly, kind of more of a homage, I'd say, to the opening of the first film with Drew Barrymore's death. Like, Sarah Michelle Gellar's character has nothing to do with the plot. She just gets killed off. I think her character name has something, like, they tied in that way, but for the most part, it's like, it's just, hey, let's get a popular actor who could be a replacement for Neve Campbell, just in case Neve Campbell, we want to kill her off or whatever, and you got Sarah Michelle Gellar. She's Buffy, she's in I Know What You Did Last Summer, but instead we're going to kill her off. And it's just interesting to have her as, like, the, sorority girl, with the, abusive drunk boyfriend. Notably, this film has some good surround sound for the killer stuff. It's good. I like it. I like when they do that. Obviously, the ending with the whole theater stuff makes it really loud and everything, to the point where the neighbors next door will say, shut the fuck up. I'm like, bitch, it's the fucking finale. It's not my fault the audio turns itself up automatically. Anyway, the burden of these films is that they are so wrapped up in killing off randoms in elaborate ways that it pads the runtime to 2 hours, because 2 hours is quite a long time for a slasher film. Classic slasher films go 90 minutes, and they usually use random kills to pad that runtime because they don't have much of a story or characters to focus on. By this time, you've got characters to focus on, a story to focus on, a murder mystery to focus on, and then randoms getting killed off. Again, I was writing this as I was watching the film, but I think this film still kind of does it pretty well. It feels a bit tiresome when you forget the fact that Sarah Michelle Gellar is the only other random kill in the film. Everyone else who dies is a part of the main cast outside of the opening scene. So it's like, it works. Sure, it's elongated and more reference-based to the first film's opening, but I still think it works, It's someone, it's a popular face. We're going to kill them off and it's going to be fun. And that's as far as you get around to it. And obviously it being on the college campus plays more of the sorority stuff as well, which I think works. So it's not too much of a burden, but it can seem like a burden when it's a 2-hour-long film. Especially as a slasher film for 2 hours, it's long. I guess just as an additional thing about, Mickey, the young killer, it's just kind of fun how he's just there in the film. Like, he just seems like one of her friends, but there's, like, always something kind of sinister about him in a way. Like, he always seems to be trying to manipulate Sydney in a way, but, like, only in, like, 2 scenes. And this is, like, setup and payoff, like, setting up him, like, kind of manipulating her into thinking that her boyfriend might be the bad guy, which makes her think that her boyfriend's the bad guy for the rest of the film, until you find out that he isn't. And that's in the scene where, again, Mickey's trying to convince her that the boyfriend is the partner. It's like, oh, he's my partner, he's my mate. You don't want to let him out because he's also the bad guy. And then, of course, no, I'm not the bad guy. Okay, bang, you're dead. We don't need to worry about you anymore. It works. It works in terms of writing, how it has a setup and the payoff. And it works along the film, so it makes you sus of the boyfriend, the obvious red herring, but still. It's also a nice touch that Sydney is still kind of, she's scared and traumatized by the events of the first film. Like, you'd expect a lot of people to be like, oh, but if I had a guy coming after me with a knife 2 years after the first time, I'd be more like, yeah, I'm gonna take you down. Like, this isn't a fucking T2 Sarah Connor shit. This girl's a teenager in the first film. I'm pretty sure, still a teenager in the second film, at least by her late teens for sure. Probably 16 in the first film, maybe 18, I don't really fucking know. Maybe 18, I don't know. And then 18 or 20 in the second film, because it's set 2 years later, despite it coming out a year later. So, I like how they don't make her, like, too headstrong, that she's, like, cocky or anything. She's still scared, because she's still scared. This shit's traumatizing. She's gone from the trauma of her mother getting killed to thinking that she was going to get killed to, oh shit, they're going to come after me again? What the fuck? So, that pays off more in the third film as well as to how the character develops. Really just, it builds her character quite well. The boyfriend character, yes, of course, which plays more into the anyone could be the killer in this film kind of narrative, which I think plays well, the Guess Who ordeal. Yeah, and of course Dewey, Dewey thinks that he's the killer as well. Mickey reinforces the fact that he's probably the killer, and, that's just how it goes with that. He's the red herring, but hey, that's how it is. The name game copycat killer, it's a fun thing, like, oh, all the people who get killed off have certain surname stuff, but, like, by the time they figure that shit out, it doesn't matter by the end, because then they just go after the main characters, so it's kind of a plot thread that gets built up and then dropped off, but I think it's them trying to be, like, smart and playful about it, and then, telling you why these random 3 people were killed at the start of the film, but then just killing them off anyway. Killing off other people anyway, so, it's an interesting kind of decoy. It sets it up, but it doesn't pay it off because it doesn't need to. It knows what the killers are actually doing, and they're fucking around. They're trying to, distract the cops and whatever. Like, oh, just in case they want to lead. Well, here you go, So, of course, Cotton Weary is a great character to have in these 3 films. He's not in the third one for long, but he's still fun. I think he's really well utilised in this film, especially as a contrast to, he has his own arc in this film, which, is pitted against Sydney and whatever, where he kind of still seems like, the kind of guy who will lash out and kill someone. He's that kind of, he just has that persona to himself, and you think that he's the killer, and he gets set up as the killer, and then it turns out, no, he's the hero, the unsung hero and whatever, so I like his character. I don't like what happens to him in the third film, but it's one of those things of like, well, you have to, We'll get to that when we get to it, though. But I think he's fun. I liked it because I remember watching the first film being like, I know that actor. And then, of course, he doesn't pop up again outside of the video footage and in the credits. And then in the second one, he pops up as a proper character. It's like, hey, we're going to develop this guy. Nice. Good character to bring back. And obviously another, decoy and whatever. So let's talk more about the boyfriend. He can be a little annoying, a little cringe, but, given the circumstances, he's not a bad guy. Nothing about him makes him seem bad. He's obviously the polar opposite to Billy. He actually loves Sydney properly, and, yeah, sure, he's touted as the potential killer, but his arc with the frat boy stuff and how, how it goes against his relationship with Sydney and then plays into his character being tied up at the end sequence. It's nice, like, it all it winds itself through, and it's pretty good. He's obviously, again, red herring, just like Sid's father was in the first film, and even, Randy dismisses him as the cliche villain, but then Randy then, persists in saying, like, oh, Mickey's probably the killer, because they just kind of throw it out there that Mickey could be the killer, but then he dismisses that too, because it's like, well, if Mickey's the killer, he has just as much chance of, like, that Randy does of being the killer because of how kind of random but by association. Well, we know her, we're in the same class as her. Sure, I have the history as Randy from being in the first film, but, that's the only thing that disconnects him and Mickey. Still. But he does, of course, mention the whole, he does a Mrs. Voorhees reference, which, of course, is foreshadowing that you don't realize is foreshadowing. Mostly because, as well, in the Friday the 13th films, Mrs. Voorhees dies at the end of the first film, but she is revealed to be the killer because of all that stuff. So it's like, it's kind of a reverse because by the stage the son's actually dead, but in that film the son was dead, so Jason was dead in the first film, whatever. So anyway, it's just a nice kind of foreshadowing, I think, whether intentional or not. Just kind of a fun reference as well. So I have to mention, of course, Randy saying that he does give enough of a write-up on the rules of a sequel, but I'd say it doesn't really add much. Like, his whole rules are there has to be the body count is always bigger, and in this film, I mean, sure, I guess. I can't remember how many people died in the first film. Maybe there's more people in this film. Maybe it just feels like they're more elaborate deaths than in the first film, so there's that. He does say that death scenes have to be more elaborate, more blood and gore, which I would pin that, sure, why not, And the third rule, which actually isn't explained in the film, he gets cut off, but of course in the trailer it was revealed never ever under any circumstances assume the killer is dead, which is just kind of a play on how they already do that. Like, they get to the point of the film like, shit, are these two killers dead? Well, she seems pretty dead, and then the other killer comes up, oh look, I'm still alive, and then they kill him and then shoot the woman in the head as well, just to make sure. So them cutting it leads to a bit of, like, I like that. It's a nice ambiguity. It's like, oh shit, what's the third rule? But if they had left it in, it's like, well, duh, we saw the first one. I think that's why they cut it, realistically. It makes sense. Why they cut him off, at least. The ending location is teased nicely through the film, with the theatre play and then, Mickey kind of being there and disappearing on the occasion, the stuff with the boyfriend, etc. So they've got enough set up throughout the film, again, in a mystery kind of way. We totally planned this out. It's totally a professional script that we wrote completely before the film started filming, I promise you. Nudge, nudge, wink, wink. I will admit that killing Randy did kind of suck. He's the one character fan favorite, clearly. He does have a cameo in the third one, which is nice. Fun way to tie up his character, but yeah. The reason for why he dies does make sense. But yeah, it kind of still hurts a bit. It's like, damn, I really like his character, but of course you had to kill him off. Why not? Then bringing him back with a videotape in the third film was kind of cheesy, but we'll get there when we get there. I don't really think there's much to say. He just explains more rules about the third film, and it's basically that anything goes, and that he also got laid. So he's not even a virgin in the second film. So that's just a thing that they have to mention. Anyway, it's not very valorous or anything, but still. It's kind of just pulled out as a joke. It's interesting that this film utilizes the idea that the killer films all the murders as a way to immortalize their actions, but it's actually not like that at all. It's just a gimmick, Outside of it being used as a more effective degree in the fourth film, the fourth film utilizes it quite well, which I think is also kind of a Halloween Resurrection thing, which I love. Halloween Resurrection. It's obviously the one everyone hates, but I love it for just what it does, and that's basically what Scream 4 does, to a bit more of a professional and modern take. But it does, it does help to foreshadow that Mickey is the killer, because he does have a video camera and he is filming elements, so it's clear that, he has a video camera, so what other person could potentially be the killer who has a video camera? Well, Mickey, he's the only person to be seen to do that. We've verbally heard that he has taken the time to go and edit stuff, so he knows how to edit footage, all this kind of stuff. And I feel like they should have played into that a bit more as well, and I'll get into that in a bit. I mean, he's only shown in the first act to use the camera, but in the second act they mention that he can edit stuff, so yeah, again, we'll get into it. I will talk about set pieces, of course, and this is the main part that I want to get into, because the main set pieces that are to do with killing off the main characters, outside of the conclusion, are the big ones in the AV room where Gale is chased and Dewey is stabbed, though he still doesn't die, which... sure, why not? I mean, it looks convincing. That could have been, again, played into Dewey was the killer all along because he could have faked his death. They did in the first film, but that probably would have been a bit too obvious this time around. And the outdoor area where Randy is killed. They're just fun set pieces in a way, One's isolated indoor, one's outdoor and completely random, but kind of havoc-y in a way. It's cool. It's nice. very different to each other. My favourite set piece, of course, is the one where the cops are trying to move Sydney to a secure location, but Ghostface comes by and kills the cops and crashes the car. The second cop's death, I love it. Him being like getting speared through the head. Very Friday the 13th, I love it. It's kind of dumb, given once Sydney escapes the car, she easily has the upper hand on Ghostface. Like the first time where she tries to take off the mask and then falls on the horn. Fun kind of jump scary thing. Oh shit, I guess we should just like not do this at all. But, you know, she easily has the upper hand when she gets out of the car on Ghostface, and could have easily removed the mask, which she does contemplate twice to no effective avail outside of getting her roommate killed in the most obvious death scene, which is the worst part of the sequence. The ending of the sequence is shit. So, like, it has its moments, but it's weak in its finale, where it chooses to go for an unnecessary kill over doing a reveal. And yes, this does lead into the final reveals, because it literally, Sydney just walks away and then walks into the final sequence. There we go. But, and that does obviously set up the, Cotton, we think that Cotton's the killer and whatnot, and by this stage, you know, Cotton has been framed as, well, just after that, Cotton gets framed as the killer and whatever. But I feel like Sydney should have, when she was out, when she'd gotten out of the car, should have taken off the mask, realized, oh shit, it's Mickey, which we do find out, yes, that was Mickey because he has the head wound and everything. If he's unconscious, sure, why not? But then maybe we get the girl, you know, that's when the roommate tries to get out of the car, and maybe they do get out and they're like, shit, let's go call the cops, and they're running away, but she's like, no, wait, I don't know, maybe they turn around, they do something else, whatever the fuck. And then they go back to find Mickey's body, and he's not there, and then he jumps out and kills the girl, or he simply stabs her whilst she's trying to get out of the car, and then he tries chasing, then he gets out of the car and tries chasing, I think that would have worked better if she was trying to get out whilst you knew it was him. He wakes up, stabs the girl, pushes her to the side, gets out of the car and starts chasing, like, puts the mask back on, but starts chasing after Sydney, who then runs to the auditorium where she hears the music, but that music was set up by him, so that doesn't exactly work, but maybe it's just as a safe spot, maybe it's the next big building that she could go to. I don't know. Maybe the music's been blaring the whole fucking time. Who cares? Anyway, she would have made her way there, found the boyfriend, all that kind of stuff, and knew that Mickey would have appeared eventually, and then he would have come by, still maybe doing the exact same sequence, revealing the mask again, and she's like, scene could have played out like exactly how it was. If they had to change that one bit, I feel like it would have been a bit better. Because it's like, imagine that. You know who the killer is, and then, even despite knowing who the killer is, he's still able to kill her friend, and she still is running away from him because he's got a fucking knife. You know, she might know who he is, but he's got a fucking knife, and she hears noise thinking that, I can tell my teacher, all these people, my theatre people, they're all rehearsing, they can help me to defeat this guy, or at least to go to the cops and to find him and arrest him and that kind of shit. That's the reason why she goes in it in the first place, so it makes sense that they could have still done that. I think it's the only part of the script I would have changed. It's the only thing I would have changed. Because then you can still have your final reveal of Debbie coming in, and oh my god, she's actually Billy's mom. You know, because we already know that Mickey's the bad guy. Like, it's obvious as shit that Mickey's the bad guy by that stage, so why not? It still could have been fun with him saying, like, that the boyfriend was the other killer, the partner, and all that kind of stuff. That could have all still played out fine. Literally, the rest of the film could have played out just as well as it did, you know. Didn't really need anything else, but still. Of course, Mickey's final I want a trial speech is, it's fun, it's different as to why he's the killer outside of the additional, psychopath Craigslist kind of deal, which is a cute little addition. But of course, he's not really relevant to Loomis's plan, so she obviously kills him. He's dead now. Or is he? He jumps up one last time before Gale and Sydney blast him, which is just over the top. But it's like, fuck it. They do it in every film. It becomes a trope of these films that the killer has to come back to life at some stage. Anyway. But yeah, the fact that Billy's mother being the main villain, who, you don't think that Sydney would recognize it, because immediately, like, does Sydney know who this is? Sydney's never met her before. You realise that. It's like, Sydney has never met this person before. But then she immediately says, "You're Billy's mother," you know. She doesn't say, "You're Billy's mother." She actually calls her by her name, but I don't know what the fuck her name is. So, and then Gal's like, "Oh my god, she is," you know. That's when she realises then the obvious line of dialogue, "Oh yeah, she lost weight and she got a bit of a facelift," whatever. But it's still essentially her, of course. You know, Gail wouldn't recognise that because she's uptight. You know, to focus on herself and the bigger stories than, oh, a mother who just fucked off one time. So, yeah, I think the revenge angle is fun. It's good enough. It's very traditional, but it works well in this case. She did kill Randy, which she obviously explains why, and her eyes are very white in the scenes. Like, she's so crazy that there's the white of her eyes. It's the only thing you can see of her eyes. Like, it's a bit much. But all in all, she's a fun twist villain. And yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about Scream 2. It's a fun sequel. I think I enjoy it more than the first film to some degree. Like, I think that's the thing for me. Like, I rate it less, obviously. It's not as good quality of a film, realistically. Not as iconic, all this kind of stuff, whatever. But I think because of that element, I appreciate it more. It's still a 3-star film, arguably 3.5, but it's still just a slasher film in the end. Still a kind of mystery whodunit, but yeah, no. They're all like that, so you can't really make that its own thing because they're all like that. So yeah, it's fun. I think these films as well, having the whole who's under the mask element, is not exactly unique. Obviously, it's more of like these films are trying to play on the tropes of, like, you know, the Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street and Halloween, but you know who's under all of those masks. Except for Jason, Freddy, of course, because he's Freddy. But you know who's under all those masks. This is the trope of, like, other independent, one-off prom night kind of slasher films, where you don't know who the killer is, and that's the twist of the film. So, the big reveal. So yeah, still, fun film. I don't completely enjoy it more than the first film, but I think because I've watched the first film so much, and it's a beat, yeah, beat for beat, you know what the first film is and you know what happens. Whereas the second film, you forget over time because a lot more people talk about the first film. So that even the pop culture zeitgeist makes you forget about the second and third film, and it makes me appreciate the second and third film more. And they're still quite entertaining, the slasher films. So, yeah, as it goes, it's fun stuff. And, yeah, I guess we'll see you in the third film. Why does this not turn off? Let's get a bit spooky. I think the white lighting kind of is repetitive, and I've turned on the lights above to give it a little bit of ambiance. So, Scream 3. Oh wait, no, hold on. I have some further notes on Scream 2 about the ending, because I kind of wanted to know about the writing and production about it, and saying how, you know, because I mentioned how it was a bit of a messy production in terms of how they wrote it. And apparently it's because there was a leaked ending, and despite this apparently being revealed as a dummy ending, like in 2017, it apparently revealed that the boyfriend and the roommate were working for Mrs. Loomis, and, you know, she still didn't want her identity to be revealed, so she was going to get them to do all the killing, then she was going to kill them and blame it on Cotton Weary, and because he would want revenge and whatever, but then that goes awry when he kills her, and then he goes to kill, what do you call it, what's her, Sydney, as revenge, and then they stab each other, and then it's, like, left ambiguous as to if she lives. It's not exactly a amazing ending. I much prefer how it actually went. Sure, if this was the official script, and then, you know, they're like, shit, we gotta change it now, I'm like, I like where they changed it. I much prefer the direction that they went in. Of course, if the whole Mrs. Loomis twist was still an actual thing, that makes me wonder to some degree, you know, how many people were like thinking, oh shit, they're still going to do the Mrs. Loomis twist when they never set it up in the film. Of course, it's the twist at the end because it's a twist, but still. You know. But yeah, so it's just, that becomes a thing because in this film, Scream 3, there's a lot of referencing the fact that there's the film of Stab 3 has a lot of production errors and stuff because it has multiple different scripts with multiple people dying at different times just in case one gets leaked. So that's like, it's kind of as far as the meta stuff goes. Like, I like the meta text of this franchise, but it kind of ends with, I mean, it doesn't really end at all. The meta text is still there. I still kind of stand by my other video where I'm like, what the fuck is the meta text going to be for Scream 5? Because today's the 13th of October, and they've just released the Scream 5 trailer. I'm calling it Scream 5 because Scream 2022 is dumb. Anyway, we've covered this. The film doesn't look like it has much of a meta text at all. It seems like they're going to go for the kind of Scream 2011, Scream 96 reboot thing, where it's like, they're not referencing anything metatext in the film. It's just, looks like a slasher sequel, and it doesn't look really, it looks fine. Like, it looks sleek and stuff, and I'm interested to see what they do with it. I'm not going to watch any more trailers, because I don't like watching trailers for slasher films when they're going to just tell me who dies and what the plot is. Halloween Kills did that in its first trailer, and that was ridiculous, so I haven't watched the trailer since, and God knows when I'll watch the film, but, you know, it is what it is. Apocalypse and all, it's kind of hard to watch films nowadays. So, this film only has a few minor meta-tech stuff. The trilogy element, because this was designed as a trilogy, who'd have thought it. It's not a thing that suffers, because there's a fourth and fifth one, because the film wraps itself up nicely. Like, the first and second film, they don't have an ending. Realistically, once the killers get killed off, nothing else happens. It just, the camera flies away and that's the end. It's like, okay, we'll return to this story later. Like, okay, this one has an ending, which is nice. You know, the fourth one kind of does that as also where it kind of floats away. So I'm interested to see if the fifth one's going to be a final film. Let's fucking hope. But I'm still curious because it's done by the guys who did Ready or Not, and I really liked Ready or Not, so I have hope, but I also don't know. Let's talk about Scream 3. So, of course, the opening focuses on the demise of Cotton Weary, but also introduces the fact that the killer has a voice modulator to present different voices. It's short and sweet and to the point, and rather than it being meta, it's narratively focused on the killer hunting Sydney. It's fine. It's not memorable, but once you see it, you're like, all right, this is the one where Cotton dies at the start. That's all. It doesn't do anything else. It probably because the runtime was already so long, they're like, okay, because I didn't look up the stuff about this film. I don't think that this is a kind of film where you could really try to pull off writing and, you know, backstory kind of problems. Like, if I look at Scream 3 on the Wikipedia page, takes place 3 years after the previous film. Follows Sidney Prescott, who has gone into self-imposed isolation following the events of the 2 previous films, but is drawn to Hollywood after a new Ghostface begins killing the cast of the film within a film, Stab 3. It satirizes the cliche of the film trilogies. That's as far as the meta stuff goes. It goes for a more comedic approach with elements which I do like. It depends on how I'm feeling. Tonight I've been pretty tired, and I didn't care for a lot of it. But there's the Gale and the woman who plays Gale in Stab 3. Whenever they're together on screen, I love it. They're great. I know it feels like the kind of thing where a lot of people would hate it, and would think her character's really annoying. And I can understand that, but I really like it. I think it's funny. Yeah. So apparently, because there was the violence and horror were reduced in response to increased public scrutiny about violence in media following the Columbine High School massacre. Holy shit. What a time to be alive. And this is pre-9/11. Doesn't really have anything to do with terrorists, to be honest, but still. So there was still a 5-page outline by Kevin Williamson for this film, but he didn't write the script. It was written by a guy. Was it actually written by a guy called Kruger? Please tell me it wasn't. Yes, it was. Aaron? It just says, it's Ehren Kruger, who has written a lot of the American versions of The Ring and The Ring 2, and the American Ghost in the Shell, and three of the Transformers films. Yeah, he did this before he did any of them, so there is that. But yeah, yeah. So Williamson wasn't able to do the third film. He had other writing commitments. Screenwriters are very important in movies. I know a lot of people say that directors are the key to films, and yes, they do direct everything and have all the mood and everything and have final cut, whatever the fuck. Usually have final cut, but writing is usually a big presence, especially in a film like this. So hence why I praise Kevin Williamson for the first two films. I don't really care much for the script of the third film. So a lot of Williamson's notes were discarded by Kruger. He didn't care for it. Yikes. It's obviously fun that Craven directed all four of the films. I hope they pay homage and respect to that in the fifth film. They should. I know it's been, like, what, 8 years since he passed, but still. The ending was refilmed in January of 2000, but they filmed the whole film by September 1999. This is another one of those things where this film, the second film doesn't feel like a 90s film. The first film does, and I think it's kind of a deficit. It just feels too dated in costuming and everything. Second film doesn't for me. I don't know why. I think because it's like, it's an arts college, so everyone just kind of dresses how they feel, but it doesn't feel like it's in a date and a time period. Like, there's a lot of films in the late 90s to early 2000s, Scooby-Doo, for example, The Fast and the Furious, which have that feel to it. It's very 90s, very 2000s. Whereas, very, very pre-9/11 2000s, I should say. There's a very specific tight spot between 98 to 2001, where American films can just feel a bit dated so easily. Scream 2 doesn't. Scream 3 does, and it's the Hollywood approach and how they're all dressed a lot of the time. Like, there's one part where Gale, the actual Gale, so, Courtney Cox is wearing tight red pants. She also has a terrible haircut, but I don't really care about that. It's the tight red pants that is like, what the fuck? So Scream 3 has a lot less of it's got apparently a better audience approval rate, but not as well critical, which makes a lot of sense. Looking at production, so he actually did I Know What You Did Last Summer. Was that after Scream? God, that would be really... Okay, it was after the first Scream, but not the second one. So probably hence why Sarah Michelle Gellar came into the second film. Yeah, so we did do Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, then Scream 2. There's a lot about the production of this film that I would highly recommend looking up, from elements of like how Kruger hadn't even seen the Scream films. He watched them and read the screenplays before writing this film. That probably explains why there's such a gap in time between, the making of the second and third film. But yeah, it doesn't really seem like... like Scream 2, the script of Scream 3 was subject to repeated alterations, with pages sometimes completed only on the day of which were being filmed. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Anyway, let's move on. Same kind of writing stuff and whatever. Stab 3 being the third and final film is a cute meta joke, as this was meant to be the last in a trilogy, sure. Dewey is weird in all these films. Like, the first film, it makes sense. The second film, he's just kind of creepy. He's just there. I like him. He's just kind of weird. Like, it makes more sense that he's kind of sus. Like, he's the killer in the second one. I like that about it. But he's still himself, When the third one, he's just kind of really weird in the third one. And he just got this weird persona that he has. But then once Gale comes by, he just suddenly becomes different. It's weird. Yeah, they really lean into the Gale story again, because it's like, oh, we get it. They've clearly dated between the films and had their own problems, which they then care to explain. Again, that's just, we know what happens with them. It doesn't really matter. It really doesn't. Gale is kind of becoming her own villain because, her fame, 60 Minutes 2, shit like that, like, has ego boosted her so much that even during a speaking at a college campus, I guess, a university, someone asked, like, are you happy that you sold your soul to get where you are, kind of deal? Not that explicit, but, obviously a critique of her, and she's not really happy about it. But they don't really take her anywhere, you know. I mean, she's always been like that, you know. The fact that this one guy is like, "Are you happy that you're kind of a dick when you've been a reporter?" It's like, dude, she's always been like that since the first film, since before the first film. Anyway, Jay and Silent Bob appear. Because it's Hollywood, I guess. But they're just playing those characters, so technically the Scream films are in that universe. It's a thing. It's just a thing. I've never even seen those films. I don't care about Kevin Smith films, so it's just a thing. Sydney's dad comes back, and I legitimately forgot that he was in this film. He's there for one scene. I don't think he's ever in these films ever again. But hey, he survives. He just goes back home. Like, the killer does not care about the father. Like, easy bait, but doesn't care. No, fuck that. I'm looking for it myself. I like that Sid has gone into the cabin in the woods to protect herself. The killers can't find what they can't find, kind of deal. The killer does end up finding her number and calls her. I don't know if that would allude to the killer finding her address. You'd think it would, but I don't know. But still, it lures her out, which is good enough. But that happens well further into the film, like past the 45-minute mark. She's hardly in the film. She's only in the second half of the film, realistically. Like, yeah, no, pretty much. She's only in, like, the second half of the film. I think she comes in just before the hour mark, but still, it's really boring. Because there's no main character. The main characters are Dewey and Gale, and I'm like, they're just, like, doing stuff, and I don't care. I don't really care for the first half of this film. So, obviously, with the killer, who is the director of the Stab 3, Roman, I find it interesting that, like, he goes out of his way to get this cast together, then kills them off, just so he can do more to lure out Sydney. I'm going to kill off Cotton to try and find Sydney. Doesn't work, kill him. Alright. Move on to just killing people from the cast members of Stab 3 to see if it does anything. And then, obviously, it's the bait is her mother's voice. And it's like, oh, but how can my mother still be alive? I saw her be murdered. Well, kind of, but still. Candy being the one who dies second is technically accurate, because of course she's in the second death scene, but she's the third person who gets killed off. Cotton's the second. Anyway. Also, you know, the meta gag about the constant rewrites and whatever. But still, we'll get into that. It's not really relevant. We've already talked about it. Patrick Warburton is a god, and I love that he's in this film, but he's in it for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes max. Like, in terms of total runtime, probably like 2 minutes. But like a span of 10 minutes, and he's the bodyguard for the actress who plays Gail, Jennifer, and that's the character who I absolutely love. And I love Patrick Warburton. And I love his character in this, except that he at one stage says "ite," like that alright, but just "ite," which I didn't know was a word till like 2 years ago. I don't understand how it's a word, so knowing that it was still around as early as 99 is really just, oh my god. I don't like that word. It's so bad. Anyway, he's here with us, and then he dies, but still. We have Patrick Dempsey as the detective, who's clearly a red herring. Him and his detective partner, who's just a dick. For no reason. Having the director Roman go with the cops as a way to, to have his character swept away as the killer is, like, oh, the killer is setting up Roman as the director as the killer, so it's him covering his own tracks saying, like, no, it wasn't me, and they had a duplicate phone, a clone phone of his own phone and shit like that. Like, that's like a clever thing to completely throw you off the scent of the director, because he's just a whiny child for the rest of the film until you find out that he's still a whiny child, but he's also the bad guy. I do find it interesting that Sydney's been haunted by visions of her mother, like dreams of her mother, and then, of course, of Ghostface. I guess trying to foreshadow that maybe her mum is actually the killer. Not really. But obviously the killer had more to do with her mum than she thought. Obviously, that's a thing. But I do like the voice thing over the phone, But, like, that's also, like, they don't really explain how that machine works. Like, so you can just, like, copy someone's voice and say anything. That's kind of bullshit. Like, thank God, I don't really think they use that in the next film at all, and thank fuck, because it's really my only pet peeve of this film, of like, it's just a dumb idea. Like, it's too much James Bond spy gadget. It's too out there, I think, for in reality. Like, these films are still trying to be realistic. So it's like, the fact that he can get his dead mother's voice from 3 B-movie horror films that she starred in, to which we don't even know how much of those films she starred in, you know, to get her voice and stuff, and then get Sydney's voice and all this kind of stuff. It's just weird, you know. By this stage, yeah, we're 45 minutes in, nothing was grabbing me. I wasn't really interested. And then they had the whole setup of the script of Stab 3 being released, and like, but not that, but like the facts of all of them, seeing like page by page who's gonna die next, and it's like, and all the lights are out, and the guy goes into the kitchen while everyone's outside by the pool, and he turns on the lighter, and it's like the one who smells the gas, and then the whole building explodes. That was cool. But because I don't care by this stage, it's like, but by that stage onwards, the film gets better. Like, it's the one thing that makes the film suddenly, pretty much like Warburton's death scene onwards, is pretty much when the film for me gets good. So yes, whoever smells the gas. Then Dewey, of course, shoots Ghostface, but, you know, bulletproof vest, which for some reason Dewey never realizes is a thing. Like, of course, that's a thing, but Dewey's never there when the previous killers were killed, so he never realizes to shoot them in the goddamn face. It comes back at the end, but we'll get there. Of course, we don't know by this stage it's the bulletproof vest, but, you know. Then there's Angelina, who then just shows up. She's the actress who's playing Sydney in Stab 3. She's not a very interesting character. Like, she's somewhat interesting in the last 45 minutes, and she gets like a good 5-minute period where she's interesting, but she's kind of dull. She's really dull. I think it's one of those, like, oh, maybe she's secretly the killer, and she's like playing like she's done all this stuff to make sure she could get the role, just so she could lure out Sydney, just so she could kill Sydney. But it's like, it's a bit of a stretch. But it's like, you could tell that they were like thinking that while they were writing it, and that's the way that they directed it. But it's just she's just dull. Like, she has no character, no personality. She's just, I don't care about her. I mean, I don't care about any of the actors who are playing the characters in the Stab 3 except for Jennifer, because she's really fun. And I think they realized that when they kind of were starting to film it, and like, oh wow, a lot of these characters are kind of dull. Like, sure, there's like the black guy who is technically not, but technically is a Randy step-in, and all this kind of stuff, and stand-in, and all this kind of stuff. You know, I like that he survives to a certain point of the film. He's fun, but he's the better of those actors who isn't Jennifer, because he still gets some showtime, and he gets to have fun. He dies, sure, but he's the only one of those actors that are actually fun outside of Jennifer. But she gets a lot more as a character screen time, so I kind of exclude her from that amount, because she really dives into that fucking character. The detectives also act sus. I don't care. Just obviously red herrings. There's so many setups for different people who are killers. They're so obviously red herrings. Like, nothing in this film sets up the fact that the detective is the killer. All you got is the small clues of that it's pretty much everything that Randy says, you know, that because they have this whole sequence where Randy shows up in a videotape cameo because his sister just shows up in the film. We've never seen his sister before, you know. But that kind of does foreshadow Roman in the way, like, oh, it's a random sibling we didn't know existed. We, as an audience, didn't know existed. They in the film knew existed, you know. So, you know, Randy talks about how there's, you know, a secret backstory, so the mother's secret backstory with being an actress, and that there's going to be a reveal about who the actual killer is, so the fact that Roman actually filmed all this stuff of proof of his own mother being a slut per se, and then showing it to Billy and Stu, and then setting it all to Billy, and then setting him up to be with Stu to, kill the mother. Them coming back a year later, I don't think that's exactly his plan. Like, I don't think he planned the events of Scream, but just his own mother's death. So, yeah. It's not really a thing that they talk about, because I don't think it's relevant. That would be stretching it, I think. Like, oh, I made sure that they'd come back in a year and kill you and your friends. It's like, did you? I don't think so. So, yeah. Obviously, there is the element that Roman's the half-brother of Sydney, and it's probably the best angle that they could have gone with. Like, it makes sense. They set up the whole trilogy bullshit meta, and they do that, It's very Last Jedi. Sorry, not Last Jedi. It's very Return of the Jedi, and it's kind of just cool, but it's just as uneventful as that is. Like, obviously this has more narrative stuff. Like, it really sets up the whole trilogy and puts the whole trilogy in motion kind of deal, where you can watch it back to front, but it really doesn't affect the previous two films. Like, it doesn't. It really doesn't. Roman is a character before you know he's the killer. Because again, even on my second watch of this film, I had forgotten that, and that was last year, I had forgotten that Roman was a killer. Because that's how little Roman's in the film, and when he's in the film, he's just obnoxious and I don't like him. So when you find out he's the killer, he's still just an obnoxious, whiny child, and even Sydney uses that against him, like, oh, you're just whiny, come face me, and they fight and whatever. We'll get back to that later. But the whole relative of Sydney kind of deal, I think is better done in the fourth one, so we'll get to that later. Oh yeah, they have a dumb jump scare, which is really shit, but it does set up, well, not really pay off, what comes after next is Gail and Jennifer hanging out, and then they also run into Carrie Fisher, who isn't actually Carrie Fisher, but she's playing someone who looks like Carrie Fisher, who knows that she looks like Carrie Fisher, and almost had the role of Princess Leia, but chose not to sleep with George Lucas. Because that's a thing, the whole sleeping with the director thing. I wonder if any of the actresses actually slept with Wes Craven. Like, because that just makes it just makes Wes Craven look bad. And that's not something you want to do. I do like that Sydney still has her dead boyfriend's necklace that she got in the second film. That's cute. Also, the whole sequence at in the set for Woodsboro, for Stab 3, quite fun. It's well utilized. It's just a fun set piece. It's a nice meta thing of its own without being too stupid, It's the Hollywood meta. So there's the meta of the film being a trilogy, and then the Hollywood meta being that they're making Stab 3, and there's Return to Woodsboro and all that kind of stuff. So yeah. I do like how the villain focuses on tormenting Sydney for her mother's death, which is an interesting angle. It drops the meta angle, kind of. It still is in tangent with the trilogy meta angle, but still. I know that obviously the mother was an actress, secretly had been for a 2-year period of her life and whatever, and never mentioned it to Sydney. I never knew this about my mother. Shit, woman, it's the third film, you don't know anything. Apparently. Yeah, this film is a lot more tiring after a year later, having seen all these films. The first one, it's still fun to watch. I don't care as much to watch it, though. The second film, I like it a lot more. I think I like the second one a lot more each viewing. The third film, I've liked a lot less now. Oh, did I mention I gave this film 2.5 stars for my... I didn't even mention my review. Let me show you my review. I gave this film 2.5 stars. My quote, when you're friends with Sydney, you die. And my quote was, I just said, not as fun as I remember, frowny face. So, yeah, I don't think that the film is bad because it's a trilogy film rather than being hey, but there's 2 more films coming out, because they didn't know that then, and it's designed as a trilogy film and it works. So let's talk about the final section of the film. Final section, which starts at the 1:10 mark of a 2-hour film. I know he says that they're in the final act when they get to the final act, but still, God, the heat is suddenly on. Is it cold? Apparently. It's now at the producer's mansion, which has some nice old horror movie homages, but doesn't really do anything with it, outside of the place being a bit of a maze and Roman fakes his death, and then we get, you know, two Gales hang out again, which is fun, because I like Jennifer. This section tries to play with the there could still be two killers angle, but it's pretty obvious that there's one killer by this stage. Like, sure, they're just cutting between where the killer is, and unfortunately, despite the fact that Jennifer's death is very fun and inventive, they kill her off, which sucks. And now it just rounds the film down to the leading three, the detective and the killer. And of course you think the detective and his partner are the killers, but then we'll get to that. So in one sequence, the three actors and the director are killed off until Sid and the detective arrive, one after the other. And the rest of the chasing and stabbing and Dewey lucking out once again and getting hit with the blunt end of a knife to the head and all this shit, which of course leaves Dewey and Gale to be, tied up by Ghostface, who then lures Sydney to the mansion. And even though I don't remember I don't know if she remembers where the party was or that there was a party, so I guess Ghostface just assumed that she knew. And then she shows up anyway, so I guess it doesn't matter. But I don't know if she... I think that they mention it, that she knows about the party. So you'd expect that she knows, but still. I mean, the cops know. The detectives know, so you'd think. Also, she has a gun now. She gets a gun. It's a secret gun. But then the gun becomes useless because the Ghostface gets her to use a metal detector on herself. So she throws the gun in the pool. But then... bam! Dual secret gun. She had two guns on the same leg. Clever girl. And I like the line, "It's your turn to scream, asshole." It's a neat line. It's a good line. One of the best lines in the film, which is saying a lot because there aren't many great lines in this film. The detective does, of course, rock up and after Sydney shoots Ghostface, bulletproof vest. Why does she not aim for the head? Come on. But then he gets stabbed because she thinks that he's the killer and that he's partners with his detective mate, but his detective mate's just a jackass and doesn't even show up for the rest of the film. And then Patrick Dempsey gets stabbed and almost dies. And yada yada yada, they go into the secret room. Then the reveal. Roman is the villain. He set up Billy and Stu. He's jealous that, he's further jealous that makes his... So, he was jealous because he finally found out who his mother was, confronted her, and she's like, "Hey, I don't want you in my life. That was a person, I was your mother. The person who was your mother, it doesn't exist anymore. I'm not your mother. Goodbye." So, then he gets his revenge. She gets killed. And then he doesn't realize... Then a year later, of course... Billy and Stu are like, "Hey, let's do those killings again," and which obviously ends with the result of Scream 1, and then Sydney becomes famous, and he obviously didn't realize that Sydney would become famous, and is kind of like, yo, what the fuck, and then becomes jealous because of that. So, I still prefer the second film's villains. I just prefer them. They're more fun because they are characters when they're innocent, and they're characters when they're villains. It's fun. Whereas Roman's just a whiny dude, and I don't care about him at all. Roman gets stabbed by Sid, who then they have a hand-in-hand moment as he dies. She gets up and walks away, and then Dewey's like, "Well, isn't there a thing when the killer comes back?" And so the killer gets back up and is like, "Ah!" And then Dewey shoots the fuck out of him, but of course he's only shooting him in the chest until Sid says, "Shoot him in the head," so he shoots him in the head. And the villain's dead. And that's the ending. And then, of course, they have the happily ever after where Dewey proposes to Gale, and Patrick Dempsey is there at the house with a arm in a sling, and they're all at Sid's house, and she's happy to leave the front gate open and the front door open because she's not scared anymore. Life can move on. The end of the trilogy. So I can definitely say, even not having yet rewatched Scream 4, that Scream 2 is my favorite of the franchise. Overall, Scream 3 is not an overly interesting film, but it tries. But still. Anyway, let's obviously check out Scream 4. Shit, you can still see me. Ugh. Oh, excuse me, Mr. Ghostface. Oh. Howdy there. This is the NECA Ultimate figure for Ghostface. He's pretty cool. I don't care much for when they've got plastic legs and everything, or arms, but in this case it works because he's still got the cloth body, cloak and everything. So he's got like 3 different heads. Actually 4. The regular one, bloodied one, glow-in-the-dark one, then like a zombie one. He's got his bloody knife. He's got a few weapons. He's got another hand. I wish he had a different hand, like 2 different hands. So one that was like a closed fist, and one like the one that we have where he's clearly meant to be holding the voice modulator thing. But anyway, so Scream 4. Who would have thought we'd get to here? I wanted to turn all the lights on to just show how effective the color palette is in this film, because during the day it's so fucking white. Seriously, it's disturbingly white during this film. We'll get into that. So Scream 4. The final Scream. It actually kind of works as a good... Look, the third one works as a good bookend to the trilogy. The fourth one works as a good reboot, but like a meta on the reboot. So it's still like, oh, we're still doing a sequel though. But like the point is that they're trying to reboot, which is like the joke. And I like it. So Scream 4, I gave it 3 stars, which is my regular rating. I'd probably give it 3.5, realistically. But there are elements of it that I just kind of roll my eyes at times, but I still really like it. So I gave it 3 stars. My quote, but if you want to be in the hospital, I can put you there in the fucking morgue. And then, of course, I just noted, leaves a good taste in thy mouth before I gag on Scream 2022. It opens with a fun meta-on-meta opening, with the opening of Stab 6, which is actually the opening of Stab 7, which, criticizes postmodern meta horror / films in general, which is fun. I forgot that there wasn't an opening to the third film, so I always remember this opening, because it's the first ever opening I saw, because Scream 4 was the first ever Scream film I saw. So, yeah, the first one's iconic. The second one is really kind of forgettable. You get to a point where you completely forget what happens, but it works for what it's trying to do. It's not trying to be iconic, it's just trying to be metatextual, which I think works for its favor. It's very weird, but it's fun. The third film has no opening, and the fourth film is like meta on meta on meta, and it's great. It's like, it just reaffirms this film is gonna be meta. Slightly like hokey jokey, but not like the third one, but still serious slasher. So it gets the tone just right, which I think works. It can be a bit confusing when you don't know which is the actual part of the film, but of course when they actually mention Sidney Prescott, it's pretty obvious that that's the real film. It just sucks that has the worst acting in it, but that's okay, it's fine. Anyway. So, first thing to note, which obviously, lighting, it's very, very white contrast in the film. It's very, very white during the daytime. It's very off-putting. Not because it's disturbing, just because it's annoying. It's very white. And it's very obvious, too, that there is, like, one black person in the film. It doesn't make him blacker. He's like... He's not even... I don't think he's written as a black guy. Let's be honest. I don't think any part of his character references the fact that he's a black guy. So, like, the third film had that gimmick of, like, I don't want to be the black guy who dies first in the film. They had that gimmick. But that was a reference to... That was its own meta reference anyway. But, yeah, I don't really think this guy was written as a black guy. They just happened to find a guy who was a funny actor. He's a funny actor. I actually like him in Agent Cody Banks, too. But, yeah, we'll get back to him later. When it's important. In that one scene where he's important. So, Dewey for once is normal. He doesn't have a limp, which people keep noting. How could Dewey be the bad guy in the fifth film if he has a limp? Bitch, he doesn't even have a limp in the fourth movie. he's healed, because I guess David Arquette just didn't want to fucking have the limp anymore. It was a bit dramatic in the third film, realistically. But, he wakes up, he's sheriff of Greens, horror bar. I don't remember what the place is called anymore. I've already forgotten. And he's married with Gail, which is nice. They don't have kids, which is never talked about. But okay. Literally, they never talk about it. The worst you get is the whole, the drama between Gail and the deputy. Because I guess the deputy wants to sleep with Dewey, but she doesn't. Like, she just has that kind of personality. She clearly doesn't. She's just a nice fucking person, and Gail's just kind of a bitch. Still. She hasn't changed. Gail hasn't fucking changed. Anyway. But that's like your romantic arc for them. It pays off in the end. Sure. But it's just because the deputy does a job. But then we have an interview with Sydney, because Sydney's come back in town for the first time in a long time, which is great because she's got a book tour, and Gail is watching her have an interview where Sydney, the whole interview of Sydney, which is on her Macintosh, is that a TV or a computer? It acts as both in this. Well, it acts as both, so it doesn't matter. She literally writes her script by closing the tab, but then of all things, the aspect ratio for the interview with Sydney is like the movie's aspect ratio, which is really, really weird. Like how this is really widely cut? Yeah, because this is a video for the internet. But if it's, a TV show, it'll be this kind of, like, open matte format. But, 16:9. But that interview was not, and I don't know why. It's really bizarre. So anyway, then we were introduced to our young cast. Sydney's cousin, Jill. Took me a while to find out what her name was. Her boyfriend, Trevor. The hero's girl, Kirby. Probably the most fun character of the film, really. And the tall, attractive one, who I don't know the name of, but who cares? She's like the third person to die after the first two. Technically, she's the first person if you don't count the first two people, because they don't really talk about the first two people outside of just briefly at the start, which is. I mean, who cares? They don't do that in the first one anyway. Then you've got your tech nerds, who one of them is kind of weirdly misogynistic. I guess the joke is that he's actually gay. But, yeah, this was in a period where gay jokes were dead because it's homophobic. And it's like, no, now we need gay characters. But this wasn't before gay characters became really mainstream. So it's kind of weird. It's a really weird, lukewarm area where there's nothing about him that makes him look gay. He just seems like he clearly can't get laid by any of the girls, and is kind of a dick. I don't like his character. There's only like one part where I like him, and that's literally his final sequence where like he's drunk. But we'll get there. So he has an internet stream called Hall Pass. Oh no. Gail. Let's talk about Gail. So she's still ego-driven again, mostly against Deputy Judy, which is annoying. So yeah, drama. But hey, now the internet's a thing, and it's in this movie. It's a thing now. It's important. What else is there? Alison Brie's in this film. There is really kind of a big cast. Like, they really cast well in this film. Like, a lot of people would be like, oh, I know that person, I know that people. Like, even the young people, you recognize their faces to some degree. Like, even one of them is Macaulay Culkin's brother, but not the brother who's in Succession, / Scott Pilgrim. So, not the other interesting brother, but the one that nobody's fucking heard of. And it's like, I don't know, that guy looks familiar, but I don't know who he is. It's just like, okay. He's the bad guy, but that's okay. Alison Brie is annoying at the start of the film. There's like one part, I'll get into it, for fuck's sake. I keep jumping ahead of myself. It's interesting that Gail and Dewey's problem is them living in a small town, something that obviously Gail escapes from in the third film to cover big stories in LA, but, she just needs another big story because writing fiction is boring. She needs non-fiction stuff because she's apparently not a reporter anymore. Because she's a writer? Why can't she be a reporter still? Or is it because local news is just that dull? Of course, then you've got Trevor, the ex-boyfriend, the classic red herring. Like, even Sydney kind of vaguely picks up on that, like, if he's the killer, it's, like, it's too on the nose that he'd be the killer. Like, but then she does mention to Jill that, Jill reminds her of herself, so there's some foreshadowing there, which is fun, because Jill's the other bad guy. We'll get into it later. I love how they're watching Shaun of the Dead, a fun reminder that there are better spoofs on genre films than this one is. But this one's more of a spoof on... It's not even a spoof, it's just a meta text on reboots and slasher films anyway. Doesn't matter. I mean, it's still reboot of horror films, but still. But I do like how this film is... It has its comedic moments, but it's a straight slasher, which I think really works for it. Like, just tonally, it works well for it. Like, there are comedic character moments, but not like big, like, punchline gags or some bullshit, So it has its way of relieving tension if this film is scary to you. I don't know how it is. It's a slasher film, but, to each their own. Then we get the setup of Ghostface being in the room with them when they're watching Shaun of the Dead, but he's like, I'm in the closet. And so she opens the closet, and no, it's actually he's in the other house, and then he kills the girl, it's cute. I like that they did that. Like, I'm pretty sure that's teased in the trailer, but still, I remember seeing that on the airplane. That was scary on the airplane. See, I used to get scared of slasher films, 10 years ago. Not anymore. Anyway. So that's with Olivia, because she has a name. I don't really like how they show her getting killed. Like, obviously you need to show her getting killed, but, like, the fact that they keep cutting to inside the room and all the slash and everything, it's just so busy. Like, you got the girl screaming, you got Sydney running in, being like, oh my god, then getting the cops and then going into the house, but then she's already dead by that stage. When she walks into the room, it's all bloodied mess. I'm like, what if they had have just shown it from the girl's perspective in the window, looking at it, and then followed Sydney, but still cut back to their reactions of it, instead of, and just seen it all through the window. Like, I feel like that would have been more artistic, and then you just see the end result, giving this trauma flooding back to Sydney of, a fucking murder of a teenager. Like, and then you could just, like, the horror can be in your heads, like, shit, oh my god, he's... Like, you can kind of imagine what he did to her in a kind of way, which makes it scarier. Like, I feel like that would have worked better. It's the only part of this whole entire film I probably would have changed, personally. So, it's fine, though. It's still, it's fine. It's loud and crazy and whatever, but it could have been more artistic, and I think it could have been better. So, I do like how Jill does, like, because Ghostface is still in the house, goes to stab Jill, but then, Sydney pushes her out of the way, and instead she gets cut on the arm, which is kind of a callback to Scream 2, with the boyfriend getting stabbed in the arm. Like, oh shit, I wonder if he's the bad guy, that red herring thing. But, like, or everything that they do sets up that she isn't the killer. They're just trying to show, like, no, she's not the killer, all this stuff. But it's not, like, heavy-handed or anything. It's just clever little stuff like that. Like, that was clearly an accident on Ghostface part. Like, he wasn't meant to stab her or cut her or anything. He's probably thinking, shit, I hope she's alright. So, yeah. But of course, I will say, Sydney does kick Ghostface's ass, which is really cool, until the cliche of the cop coming and saying, hey, what's going on? And Sid turning around and be like, he's over here, and turning around, and he's gone. And then the boyfriend shows up. Gee whiz, that red herring, bloody red, ain't it? Whoosh. But yeah, it is good to see them having fun with, like, oh, there's one killer in a mask, but the other killer is there in person and is the victim, which is obviously setting up her plan and everything. I like how they did that in this film. Obviously, it's foreshadowing, it's metatextual, it's got all these layers to it, which I really like. I think it works quite well. Because obviously, like, it's a part of her character's plan, which you find out at the end, but, like, it doesn't make it seem like she's a killer. It's got all these elements to it that just work so nicely. Back to the cinema club, boys. Oh, God, is that cringe. Anyway, they're still annoying as ever, but now Gail is here, and she wants to work with them, which is really cringe. I don't like most of the stuff that happens with these three. Gail's annoying, and those two are cringe, and I don't like them. They're necessary, sure, but I don't like them. It's really weird how some films depict movie nerds. Like, why does the guy filming everything have to be such a creep? Like, him being gay isn't even really relevant to his character. It pops in as a gag over anything. And then the other guy's the bad guy, so it's like, he just thinks that, like, you know, Gale and Sid are cool, so it's like he obviously aspires to be them, or to be like them, which is interesting given how he's the bad guy, so it's interesting. I also forgot how much of a greedy bitch Alison Brie's character is. It actually makes her so much more fun. Like, this is in the hospital after Sydney's been attacked, and she's like, oh shit, I hope you're okay, let me drag you away by your sore arm and everything. Like, she's such a bitch, and I love her character in this part. And it kind of sucks that they don't have more of that happen, like Jennifer's character in the previous film. But then, of course, you get the obvious, hey, we've kind of set her up as a dick, and now she's really a dick and a greedy one at that, trying to exploit Sydney and everything. And then you have a death sequence in the garage, the parking garage. Such an American thing. I mean, it's just a garage. It doesn't have to... Why is it called a parking garage? What else are you going to do in a garage? Fucking drive? It's a driving garage. Such an American name. Anyway, but her whole death sequences, I really like. I'd say it's my favorite part of the film, but it's like, it's one of those things of like, you hate her, but then you really liked it, you hate her, but then you get a death scene and you're like, fuck, I really like this. There are a lot of fun sequences in this film, like, the whole parking garage with the jump scares of the car, arguably cliche, but I really like the jump scares of the car. They're really fun, because it's in universe. It's not just loud noises from people jumping out at you or anything. It's the fucking car going off, because, you know, modern technology and stuff. It's great. Then, of course, she runs to the door because she has to get out of the car because Ghostface is there and whatever. And she runs to the door and the handle breaks off, and then Ghostface runs up and stabs her, and he kind of cuddles her in a way as she dies. And then as she falls to the ground, he turns around and he's like, shit, I hope no one's around here. I love the behavior of Ghostface in this film. It's great. Like, he's not creepy, he's just like watching his own back, which is really interesting. It's very fun, it's very well directed. The lighting, especially in the nighttime scenes, fucking love it. In this scene in particular, I know it has sometimes that blue and, like, that teal and orange vibe, like color palette in some, like, one scene, but, like, the rest of it, orange and black, I really dig it. You know, and then, of course, she gets thrown onto the TV van, which is fun as well, you know. Then, of course, we get to the meta stuff. Film all the kills in real time to make the art as immortal as the killer, because the whole remake meta text, that's the rules, baby. We're remaking the rules. And apparently being gay is the only way to survive a horror film, which I think is intended as a joke. Like, it's just meant to be like, oh, there's so much bullshit in horror films now that the only way to survive is to be gay. So it's like, you know, and it's funny, I guess. They obviously pay that off with that character also saying, well, it's not his character, it's the other, that the villain character is the one saying this, but the guy at the camera does say to the killer, I'm gay, does that help? You know, just to add to the context, you know, you've killed off the gay character, I was meant to survive, but it's like, you know, sometimes it's not about that, and that's kind of the setup, like, the remake deal, like, they try to set up too many rules, you know, to try and cop them out, but it's like, they're like, nah, we're going to abide by all these rules, we're going to do our own plan, because this is our fucking movie. Anyway, it's fun that the killer is the one saying all of this, you know, but then, of course, the two of them are like, oh, but we're not going to imply it, we're not implying that we're the killers or anything, so there's some cute stuff going on there. The long-haired guy being the killer, I should talk about, he's fine, I guess, like, he's not very interesting as a character. He kind of has the romance of Kirby, but it's when he tries to pursue it, it's really cringe. But then when he actually does flirt with Kirby and she's kind of leading it, it's kind of cute, and I dig it. That's obviously later in the film, but still. And then, of course, there's Sydney's cousin Jill, which obviously is intended as like, oh, it's just like a discount version of Sydney, which is the point. Like, she's clearly written that way because she's even, like, her whole thing is, I want to be the victim, but to be the survivor because you were always the one that everyone talked about in that family because you're my cousin, because you went through all this shit, and now I want to be the one who has to go through it and get my 15 minutes of fame. We'll talk about her kind of millennial bullshit later, but still. Obviously, this means that she has to kill Sydney in order to succeed in her plan. I will mention that there's nothing that really indicates that either of them are the killer. Like, there's the part where Jill clearly runs away from her house when she's meant to be locked up in her house. But it's unspecified how long she's gone for, so maybe runs away, dresses up as Ghostface and starts stabbing people. It's implied later in the film that, yes, she was during that sequence. But yeah, it's definitely interesting, because it's like, this is a film where, instead of making it obvious who the killer is, or it's like, oh, when you go back and rewatch it, it makes it obvious. They're like, oh yeah, see, they're manipulating this and that, whatever. Like with the second film, the third film is similar to this film. The killer sets up a thing to make sure that they don't seem like they're the killer, or to make it seem like they're a red herring. In this film, there's no red herring with the actual bad guys. Like, you don't know that they're the bad guys because the amount of times there are so many people in the film that when the characters aren't there, you don't know where they are. Like, half the time they're like, oh, yeah, no, Jill's in her bedroom. But is she? She's fucked. She ran away hours ago. What have you, you know? So it's like, they do that a lot where a few characters at a time will just disappear, walk off screen to something, maybe they'll storm off or something, and you don't know if they're the killer or not. You don't know if they're going, like, because again, the red herring being the boyfriend, he does that a lot, where he'll just disappear and reappear, and you're like, in like certain scenes, and you're like, does that mean that he's the killer, but it's the obvious red herring and shit like that? So, yeah. It's just interesting, because, again, rewatching this film, it's like, the only thing that makes it interesting that Jill's the killer is the fact that you see her as the reboot discount version of Sydney. But that's it. That's the only thing about it, and that's just a kind of a metatext thing. It's her plan, but it's a metatext thing as well. Whereas with the other guy, who I still don't remember the fucking name of, I think I mentioned it somewhere. Charlie. His name is Charlie. There's not really much to say about him. He's kind of dull. He's a film nerd, horror nerd, but that doesn't really get utilized till like the last act. So yeah, I mean, outside of the movie club, so he's not really interesting as a innocent person, which I think is, again, the second film perfected it in my opinion. But I guess he's you know, I don't know. I guess he's similar in a way to the Mrs. Loomis in that regard, you know. But she was still fun as a innocent character, you know. Annoying, but that was the point. If you interpret her performance that way. Anyway, let's talk about the Stab-a-thon, because it's cute. It's meta, again, got some meta stuff about the Stab films. Robert Rodriguez directing Stab 1. Then Gail getting attacked while she's trying to record the night, but Ghostface fucks with her and is actually recording it as well, so that hints how they're recording different elements, which is fun. The night scenes look great in this film. I know I mentioned that, but they really do. I like how Gail and Dewey don't understand what a metatext is, as if it's such a hip millennial thing, which I think is meant to be ironic given that Scream popularized that type of subgenre, so that's just kind of fun. Like, I mean, sure, metatext was always around, but it's because it's such a postmodern thing, it's just interesting. It's just funny. Old people, they don't understand meta. Anyway, let's talk about the movie cops. I know. You don't want to talk about cops, but these cops are movie cops. They're different. They're unique. They're here for the meta shits and gigs. So, at first, their whole meta shtick, you know, them being the cops in a horror film, is kind of cringe. But then there's a part where the black guy, Perkins, see, his name is White, you know? He has a line where he says, I'll be right back, because he's going to check the perimeter. And then he realizes, he's like, oh, I shouldn't have just said that, shouldn't I? Like, he has this whole realization that, like, fuck, oh my god, we're gonna die, you know? Like, the whole meta stuff, and even him saying, like, you know, I need to just, you know, watch more horror films to kind of understand the whole tropes and stuff. And even they're mentioning that the cop film trope is that, you know, you're either one day from retirement, you're about to have a kid, all this kind of shit. You're the new person on the force, all these kind of cliches, which they don't fit into any of them. Like, even Perkins as, like, the black cop, none of that's referenced, because clearly he wasn't written to be a black guy. But still, the white guy fucks off, but then he notices that Jill's window's open. Wonder how long that's been open for. And then he goes back to the car, and Perkins is dead. But no, he just does a jump scare and fakes his death. I like that jump scare. I think it's cute. But then, of course, Ghostface comes behind and stabs the cop. He's dead. And then stabs Perkins in the face, in the head, who just starts blistering with blood. He climbs out of the car, starts, like, blood everywhere, starts throwing his fists around. And he's like, fuck Bruce Willis, because they reference that Bruce Willis is, like, one of the only cops in movies who survives. So he just dies. It's funny. And just, you got fucking Ghostface there, and like, you right, mate? I like Ghostface being in the wind chime. That's fun. Ghostface setting up the timeline between kills whilst on the phone to Sydney. Makes you question if Ghostface is really, really fast. Nope, there's just two of them. And I like how Sydney's, I think it's her aunt, gets stabbed in the back through the letterbox. I love when they've got cute, creative kills like that. Like Scream 2 has getting stabbed through the wall, you know? It's fun. Gail getting stabbed gets her out of the film for, like, the next 30 minutes, which is good. She needs to be out for a while. Like, you know, tap her out. She's old. I don't know. The whole new rules deal with how they, you know, the final act isn't the party, but is the after party. But it's also not. It's the hospital, which is technically known as the alternate ending, according to Sydney, which is funny. So that's some good, interesting meta play there. They reference Suspiria. Fun. Because Kirby is a film nerd who's now flirting with Charlie, the killer, who's also a film nerd. I don't like them flirting at first, but they kind of get a bond going on, and I like it, you know. Then the guy with the camera, the gay guy, head of the film club. For me, he's only interesting when he's drunk. Then, of course, Trevor interrupts the little romance cliche, for the little romance, which is cliche, but it's still kind of fun, because just the way they act it out and everything, how it's written, you know, like the guy storming off, and like Charlie storming off, and Kirby being like, what the fuck, and then Trevor's like, were you guys having a thing? like Jesus Christ. It's funny. I like it. You know, there's the stuff of hinting that the cousin is missing, but she's just upstairs, but is she? Then the camera guy gets killed, and, you know, him obviously, I like how he, you know, hits his head, funny gag, puts the camera the wrong way around. Then when he's checking the stream, the camera's looking behind him. It's like, you'd expect, you know, the setup is, oh, he's going to get killed from behind. But no, in fact, he turns the camera around and then watches in the camera through his phone how the door opens and Ghostface is there, revealing that obviously one of the people in the house is Ghostface. Then he gets stabbed, and then he makes a joke about that he's gay, and if it helps at all. Just fun, I guess. So yeah, the final act has a lot of characters disappearing, so it kind of hints that anyone could be the killer by this stage, which is unique to this film. Then we get Charlie's fake death, because, well, it's not even a fake death, he just kind of gets kidnapped, but Kirby doesn't trust him enough to let him in, which is interesting, because he probably would have stabbed her and killed her, and then tried killing Sid. Interesting. Except he isn't dead, because he's strapped to a chair, very reminiscent of Scream 1. The last question for Kirby, because, you know, Ghostface has to call her and say, what's your favourite scary movie, all this bullshit, the trivia thing, and the last question being about movie remakes, and she just lists a fucking cascade of remakes. Doesn't matter if she gets the answer right or not, because she gets stabbed by Charlie, of all people. She unties him, and then Charlie stabs her, and he's like, what, after all these years, you know, only now you take notice of me? I'm like, Jesus Christ, Charlie. calm the fuck down. Bit dramatic, aren't you? But I like that, how it's like, oh, we've revealed that he's the killer now without having the mask off. Without, I'm the killer. No, he's just the killer. Hopefully none of that really cut out, because my camera just died. I was watching as the battery was dying. I'm like, oh no, the battery's gonna die. So, yeah, so fake death, all that kind of stuff. And then Jill reveals herself, taking the mask off after she stabs. So she stabs Sydney, and then she takes the mask off, reveals the camera and the mask, which I think is cute. I don't know if that means it's been in the eye hole the whole time, but I like how they do that rather than having like the voice manipulator and the mask stuff. So, I guess the whole voice manipulator thing has an app on the phone now and stuff, so they don't really need that. It's funny. It's interesting. And of course, they had tied up Trevor the whole time. The red herring, yep, he was just a red herring, clearly. And Trevor's death is really short, but it's so brutal. Like, gets shot in the dick and then gets shot in the head. Like, fuck. Anyway, I do like how they explain their reasons for being killers, utilizing the remake meta theme and how Jill wants to be the special one. The other twist with Trevor and Charlie, are the killers, just like Bill and Stu. Good cover-up, but rip Charlie getting stabbed in the heart by the girl he's meant to date, I guess? I don't know. His romantic infatuations are kind of weird. Anyway, he's dead now. Charlie's dead. And now it's just Jill. So she again stabs Sydney, who then proceeds to keel over and die. But firstly, obviously, we have to have Jill being a kind of whiny millennial about how she needs her 15 minutes of fame. Very 2010s. The only thing that really dates this film outside of the overly white contrasted brightness settings, color palette, is the, references to Facebook, which is still a thing. I know, 10 years later, it's still a thing. The types of phones, which I don't particularly mind. Technology is its own thing, but, like, her kind of 15 minutes of fame mindset is, yeah. Still, greed is what greed does, and this is America, so all that stuff. And then, of course, Jill, after stabbing Sydney and killing her, proceeds to fake her own death by, just, like, mutilating herself. And it's kind of funny how she does it, ripping her hair out, using the hand of someone else to scratch her face, running into walls and shit and jumping into the glass table. It's funny. I like it. It's comical, but it's also, like, it's just fun, But, of course, they can't end it there, because Jill's the bad guy. She needs to get defeated. So she wakes up in the hospital, after being carted away and all the press saying, "You're a hero, Jill. You survived all of this and probably killed the bad guys. We don't really know the full story, but we're still going to call you a hero anyway, because we're the American press and we don't ask questions, and we just assume things." But of course, there's like 10 more minutes left, so what are we going to do next? Dewey comes in to, when Jill wakes up, and he's like, "Thank God you're awake, tell me what happened." She explains it, and then he's like, "Well," and then she asks, like, how Gail is, and he's like, "Oh, he's good, Gail's good, she's awake, she'll pull through," and, Jill's like, "Oh, we can write a book about this together with our matching stab wounds," and then Dewey laughs, but also mentions that Sydney's still awake and everything. And I thought this was actually him saying that, like, him, like, trying to tease her, like, "Oh, so you then kill Sydney, she's still awake, but she's in that room, you should go kill her now," like, as if Sydney's already woken up and telling Dewey what. But no, in fact, Dewey goes back to the room of Gale and mentions this, and he's like, "Oh," and she even mentioned the matching stab wounds. But Gail's like, "Wait, but how does she know about the stab wounds? I haven't seen her since before I got stabbed." And obviously Dewey's like, "Oh shit, it's her." And it's immediately like, "Fuck! Sid!" So, classic Dewey fucking up again. And then, of course, they have their fight between Jill and Sid. Pretty brutal, with, like, Jill really wants to kill her, but make sure she's in so much pain at the same time, kicking her in the stab wound. Like, all this kind of stuff until Dewey comes in and she knocks Dewey out. and whacks him a few times over the head, gets the gun, then Gale shows up. It's just a whole standoff, and then the fucking cop comes in and tackles her down and rescues her because the deputy is like, I'm not trying to fuck your husband, I want you to be safe, I like you guys. It just keeps going. The whole, reference by Sid to this being the alternate ending it's just funny. I like how Jill gets more time to be the more evil one, because she does have her part as the whiny teenager, sure, but I like this part of her more, like where she's like really trying to like be evil so she can fucking kill her cousin so she can make sure her story gets sold, and she'd probably have to kill everyone in that room, which wouldn't make much sense realistically. Like, she's obviously not thinking it too far through, but just kind of shit, gotta get this done now, otherwise I'm fucked. But then, yeah, it'll be too open-ended for her and whatever. But yeah, they also, I should mention, don't really reference the second or third film. Like, they kind of vaguely do, like, oh, what am I gonna do? Just go off to college? And then, like, the vague reference, the reference to Stab 3, which obviously was the film being made with the original trilogy stuff in the third film. So they do reference it, but they don't reference their events there. They don't reference Sydney's brother, they don't reference Mrs. Loomis or Mickey or anything like that. So, yeah, it's very strictly, we're referencing the first film for actual narrative and bad guys and events, and vaguely the second and third film, but not really, And, of course, you forgot the first rule of remakes, don't fuck with the original. I like how Sydney says this. I'm curious to see if the guys who wrote the fifth film saw the fourth film. Because it's like, hi Scream 5, don't fuck with the original. Because I don't know if Scream 5 is meant to be a reboot or not, or remake. It's obviously still a sequel, but like, I don't know if it's like trying to redo Scream 4. I don't know. Is it metatext? I don't know. I won't know till I see it, so, I like the electric shock to Jill's head. It's cool. The whole setup of the clear, done. But then, of course, the fact that instead of Jill, they're like, oh, Jill's now dead, but maybe she'll get back up again. Instead of it being really dramatic, they're actually serious about it. So, like, they're helping out Dewey, and then Jill you can see her grabbing the broken glass, and then she starts to get up, and it's only Sid who grabs the gun and turns around, immediately looks and shoots her in the head. And she's like, I ain't doing this shit again, So I think it's after that she says, you forgot the rule of remakes, don't fuck with the original. So, yeah, that's when she says it, after she shoots her in the fucking head. But yeah. And then, of course, the final part is the news saying how Jill is the hero and everything, And it's funny. I think it's a really good final scene. It's just fun. But, yeah, that's Scream 4. Now let's see what my ranking of this franchise is. See, now I cut back to the part where I do my ranking, which I already filmed earlier. So last but not least, we do have my Scream ranked. Where in fourth place with 2.5 stars, we have Scream 3, a film that was my favourite for a while, but depends on how I feel upon rewatch. It's fun, but I think it loses its meta touch and its scary value by becoming kind of more a spoof, which I don't think works quite well for it. But it's not bad, it's just, yeah, a bit tiresome. Then there's Scream 4 with 3 stars, which is really fun. I like the reboot culture, I like the cinematography, except for during the daytime scenes, as I've noted. I like the modern take on it, how they're still going back to that meta trope, everything about it. I like so many aspects about it, and I still think it's quite a good slasher film. Like, it has some decent scare moments to it, but, there are aspects I wish were done differently, or better, or worse, or however it is, but I like still how it has some tongue-in-cheek comedy in it as well, so it's still fun, It's not trying to be the first film, but it's also trying to be the first film, but it's also not trying to be the first film because it's a reboot. But it's not a sequel, but it's a reboot, but it's also a sequel. It's fun. It's just fun. My number 2 is, with 4 stars, Scream, the first one, because Scream 2, despite 3 stars, is my favourite. I really like the second film. It's my favourite, it's the one that I know everyone loves the first one so much, and the first one is a really good film. Like, it's arguably a masterpiece, a modern masterpiece, all that kind of stuff. But for me, the second one just has a touch to it that I just like more. You don't know who the killers are; it's not as obvious. The fourth film does the same thing, but the fourth film is much more ambiguous about it. Whereas, and you can't really enjoy the element of, oh, well, I know who the killers are, but they're not really fun characters as innocent people, which I think the second one balances out perfectly. Fourth one has its charms, sure. First one has its charms as well, sure. The third one doesn't have any charms, but it is what it is. So yeah, that's just my ranking, and yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this video. Ghostface agrees. He'll kill me eventually, it's fine. So yeah, I'm interested to see what the fifth one is like when it comes out. And outside of that, tell me what your opinions are. What do you think about this franchise? Outside of that, thank you for watching a calm and relaxed talk of the Scream films. Check out other calm and relaxed talks I've done in the past, where I do either action or horror films, because I forgot to mention at the start of this video that calm and relaxed talk is meant to be a joke on how I talk about horror and action films in this series of reviews. So, anyway, thanks for watching. What do you think I should review next? I've got a few slasher franchises and action franchises, but I just see how it goes. This has been fun, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, see you next time. Happy Halloween. It's Halloween when this is being released, like a day or two before, but still. Halloween. Happy Halloween. Bye! Enjoy January when you get a horror film for a big slasher franchise. What a great time to be alive. They couldn't fucking release it in goddamn October of 2021. Jesus. What, is Halloween Kills too much competition for you? Probably. Bye. I'll just cut the video here. God, now I gotta film the rest of the review. Oh, shit. Okay. So,